I'm gonna finish this book, no matter how long it take. This one might take 30 minutes. This one might take an hour. I'm gonna finish this book, and then I'm gonna give you my thoughts at the end of on the next, either this video or the next video. I don't really know. A lot of this is raw and uncut. You know what I'm saying? So if you ain't never been to this channel, if you ain't never went through none of these videos, this the book I'm reading. So let's get back into it. Training of the will. Without strength of mind, nothing worthy of accomplishment can be done, and the cultivation of that steadfastness and stability of character, which is commonly called willpower, is one of the foremost duties of man. For its possession is essentially necessary both to his temporal and internal well-being. Fixedness of purpose is at the root of all successful efforts, whether in things worldly or spiritual, and without it, man cannot be otherwise than wretched, and dependent upon others for the support which should be found within himself. The mystery which has been thrown around the subject of cultivation of the will by those who advertise to sell occult advice on the matter of for so many dollars should be avoided and dispelled, for nothing could be further removed from secrecy and mystery in the practical methods by which alone strength of will can be developed. The true path of will cultivation is only to be found in the common everyday life of the individual, and so obvious and simply is it that the majority looking for something complicated and mysterious pass it unnoticed. A little logical thought will soon convince a man that he cannot be both weak and strong at the same time. Then he cannot develop a stronger will while remaining a slave to weak indulgence, and that therefore the direct and only way to the greatest strength is to assail and conquer his weaknesses. All all the means of cultivation of the will are already at hand in the mind of life and the individual. They reside in the weak side of his character by attacking and vanquishing, which is necessary strength of will be developed. He who has succeeded in grasping a simple preliminary truth will perceive that the whole science of will cultivation is embodied in the following 7 rules. Break off bad habits, form good habits, give scrupulous attention to the duty of the present moment, do vigorously and at once whatever has to be done, live by rule, control the tongue and control the mind. Any who earnestly meditates upon and diligently practices the above rules will not fail to develop the purity of purpose or power of will, and which will enable him to successfully cope with every difficulty and pass triumphantly through every emergency. It will be seen that the first step is breaking away from bad habits. This is no easy task. It demands the putting forth of great efforts, or a succession of efforts, and it is by such efforts that he will be can alone vigorated and forfeited. If one refuses to take the first step, he cannot increase in willpower, or by submitting to a bad habit because of the immediate pleasure which is affords one forfeit the right to rule over himself, and is so far a weak slave. He who thus avoids self-discipline and looks about the same occult secrets for gaining willpower at the expenditure of little to no effort in his part is deluding himself and is weakening the willpower in which he already possesses. The increased strength of will, which is gained by success in overcoming bad habits, enables one to initiate good habits, for while the conquering of a bad habit requires merely strength of purpose, the forming of a new one's necessitates the intelligent direction of purpose. To do this, a man must be merely mentally active and energetic, and must keep a constant watch upon himself. As a man succeeds in perfecting himself in the second rule, it will not be very difficult for him to observe the third, that of being scrupulous attention to the duty of the present moment. Thoroughness is a step in development of the will which cannot be passed over. Slipshod work is an indication of weakness. Perfection should be aimed at, even in the smallest task, by not dividing the mind, but giving the whole attention to each separate task as it presents itself. Singleness of purpose and intense concentration of mind are gradually gained. Two mental powers which give weight or worth character bring repose and joy to their possessor. The fourth rule. What of that of doing vigorously and at once? Whatever has to be done is equally important. Idleness and a strong will cannot be together, and procrastination is a total barrier of acquisition of purposeful action. Nothing should be put off until another time, not even for a few minutes. That which ought to be done now should be done now. This seems like a little thing, but as far as reaching importance, it leads to strength, success, and peace. The man who is to manifest a cultivated will must also live by certain fixed rules. That is true. He must not be blinded, gratify his passions and impulses, but must school them in obedience. He should live according to the principle and not according to the passion. He should decide what he will eat, drink, and wear, and what he will not eat, drink, and wear, how many meals per day he will have, and what times he will have them, at what time he will go to bed, at what time he will get up. He should make rules for the right government of his conduct, and every department of his life should religiously adhere to them. To live loosely and indiscriminately, eating and drinking and sensually indulging at the beck and call of appetite and inclination is to be a mere animal and not a man with will and reason. The beast in man must be scourged and disciplined and brought into subjection, and this can only be done by training the mind of life on certain fixed rules of rights conduct. The saint attains to holiness, but not violating his vows, and the man who lives according to the good and fixed rules is strong to accomplish his purpose. The sixth rule, that of controlling the tongue, must be practiced until one has perfect command of his speech, so that he utters nothing to peevish, anger, irritability, or with evil intent. A man of strong will does not allow his tongue to run thoughtlessly and without check. All those six rules, if faithfully practiced, will lead up to the seventh, which is the most important of them all, namely rightly controlling the mind. Self-control is the most essential thing in life, yet least understood. But he who patiently practices the rules, carrying laid down, bringing them into requisition in all the ways and undertaking, will learn by his own experience and efforts how to control and train his mind, and to earn thereby the supreme crown of manhood, the crown of a perfectly posed will. Thoroughness. Thoroughness consists in doing little things as though they were the greatest things in the world, that the little things of life are primary importance, and it is a truth not generally understood that the thought that the little things can be neglected, thrown aside, or slurred over is the root of that lack of thoroughness which is so common, and which results in the imperfect work and unhappy lives, which one understands that great things in the world of the life consist of in a combination of small things, and that without this aggregation of small things, the great things should be non-existent. Then he begins to pay careful attention to those things which is formerly regarded as insignificant. He thus acquires the quality of thoroughness and becomes a man of useful and intelligence, for the possession of non-possession of this one quality may mean all of that difference between a life of peace and power and one of the misery and weakness. Every employer of labor knows how comparatively rare that this quality is, how difficult it is to find men and women who will put thought and energy into their work and do it completely and satisfactorily. Bad workmanship abounds, skills and excellence acquired by few, the thoughtlessness carelessness and laziness are such common vices that it should cease to appear strange that in spite of social reform, the ranks of the unemployed should continue to swell, for those who scamp their work today will another day, in an hour of deep necessity, look and ask for work in vain. The law of survival of the fittest is not based on cruelty. It is based on justice. It is one aspect of divine equity in which everyone prevails. Vice, it is beaten with many stripes. If there was not so, how could virtue be developed? The thoughtless and lazy cannot take precedence of or stand equally with the thoughtful and industrious. A friend of mine tells me that his father gave all his children the following piece of advice: whether your future may be, put your whole mind upon it and do thoroughly. You need then to have no fear as to your welfare, for there are so many who are careless, negligent, and that the services of thorough man are always in demand. I know who I know those who have for years tried almost in vain to secure competent workmanship in spheres in which do not require exceptional skill, but which call chiefly for forethought, energy, conscious care. They have discharged one after another for negligence, laziness, incompetence, and persistent breaches of duty, not to mention other vices which have no bearing to his subject, yet the vast army of unemployed continues to cry out against the laws, against society, and against heaven. Cause of common lack of thoroughness is not far to seek. It lies that thirst for pleasure, which not only creates a distaste for steady labor, but renders one incapable of doing the best work and properly fulfilling one's duty. A short time ago, a case came under my observation, one of many such, of a poor woman who was given, at her earnest appeal, a responsible, lucrative position. She had been at her post only a few days when she began to talk of the pleasure trips she was going to have. Now she had come to that place. She was discharged at the end of the month for negligence and incompetence, as two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time, so the mind that is occupied with pleasure cannot be concentrated upon the perfect performance of duty. Pleasure has its own place and time, but its consideration should not be allowed to enter the mind during those hours, but should be devoted to duty. Those who will engage, those who, while engaged in those worldly tasks, are continually dwelling upon anticipated pleasures, can do otherwise than bungle through their work, or even neglect it when the pleasure seems to be at stake. Thoroughness is one second. Thoroughness is completeness, perfection. It means doing a thing so well that there is nothing left to be desired. It means doing one's work for not better than anyone else can do it, at least not worse than the best than others do. It means the exercise of much thought, the putting forth of great energy, and the persistent application of the mind to its great energy, persistent application of the mind and its task, the cultivation of patience, perseverance, and a high sense of duty. An ancient teacher said, if anything has to be done, let a man do it, or let him attack it vigorously. And another teacher said, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. He who lacks thoroughness in his worldly duties will also lack the same quality in spiritual things. He will not improve his character, will be weak, he will not improve his character. He will be weak, half-hearted in his religion, and will not accomplish any good and useful end. A man who keeps one eye on worldly pleasure and the other on religion, and who thinks he can have the advantage of both conditions, will not thoroughly either in his pleasure seeking of his religion, but will make a sorry business of both. It is better to be whole-souled worldly than a half-hearted religiousness. Better to give the entire mind to a lower thing than half of it to a higher. It is preferable to be thorough, even if it is to be in a bad or selfish direction, rather than inefficient and squeamish. Good directions for thoroughness leads more rapidly to the development of character and the acquisition of wisdom. It accelerates progress and unfolding, in which it leads with the bad to something better. It spreads in the good to higher and even the higher heights of usefulness and power. Mind building and life building. Everything both in nature and the works of a man is produced by the process of building. The rock is built up of atoms, the plant, the animal, and the man are built of cells. A house is built of bricks, and books is built of letters. A world is composed of a large number of forms, and a city is a large number of houses. The arts, sciences, institutions of a nation are built by the efforts of individuals. The history of a nation is built by is building of its deeds. The process of building necessities and the alternate process of breaking down. Old forms that have served their purpose are broken up, and the material which they are composed enters into new combinations. There is a reciprocal integration and disintegration, and all compounded bodies, old cells are ceaselessly being broken up, and new cells are formed to take their place. The works of man also require to be continually renewed until they have become old and useless, and they are torn down in order with some better purpose may be served. These two processes of breaking down and building up in nature are called death and life, and the artificial works of man are called destruction and restoration. The dual process which obtains universally in things visible and also obtains universally in things invisible, as a body is built of cells and a house of bricks, so a man's mind is built of thoughts. The various characters of man are none other than the compounds of thoughts, varying combinations. Herein we see the deep truth, saying, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Individual characteristics are fixed processes of thought, that is, and they are fixed in the sense they have become such an integral part of character that they can be only altered or removed into protracted effort of the will, and by much self-discipline. Character is built in the same way as a tree is built and a house is built, namely by the ceaseless addition of new material, and that the material is thought. By the aid of millions of bricks, a city is built. By the aid of millions of thoughts, a character is built. Every man is a mind builder, whether he recognizes it or not. Every man must perforce think, and every thought is another brick laid down an edifice of mind. Such bricklaying is done loosely and carelessly by a vast of people, the result being unstable and tottering characters that are ready to go down under the first little gust of trouble or temptation. Some also put into building of their minds large numbers of impure thoughts. There are so many rotten bricks that crumble away as fast as they put in, leaving always an unfinished and unsightly building, and one which can afford no comfort or no shelter for its possessor. Debilitate thoughts about one's health, innovating thoughts concerning unlawful pleasures, weakening thoughts of failure, and sickly thoughts of self-pity and self-praise are useless bricks, with which no substantial mind temple can be raised. Pure thoughts wisely chosen and well placed are so many durable bricks which will never crumble away, and from which a finished and beautiful building, and one which affords comfort and shelter for its possessor, can be rapidly erected. Embracing thoughts of strength, of confidence, of duty, inspiring thoughts of a large, free, unfettered, unselfish life, and useless bricks which as a substantial mind temple can be raised, and the buildings of such a temple necessitates the old and useful habits of thought be broken down and destroyed. Build thee more stately mansions, O my soul, as the swift seasons roll, each Each man is the builder of himself. If he is the occupant of jerry-built hovel of a mind, and lets in the reins of many troubles and thoughts, which blow in the keen winds of oft reoccurring disappointments. Let him get to work to build a more noble mansion which will afford him better protection against those mental elements. Trying to weakenly shift the responsibility for his jerry building onto the devil or his forefathers or anything or anybody but himself will neither add to his comfort nor help him build a better habitation. When he wakes up to a sense of responsibility and approximate estimate of his power, then he will commence to build like a true worksman. He will produce a symmetrical and finished character that will endure and be cherished by posterity, and which, while affording new failing protection for himself, will continue to give shelter to many a struggling one when he has passed away. The whole visible universe is framed on a few mathematical principles. All the wonderful works of a man in the material world have been brought about the rigid observance of a few underlying principles, and all that there is to the making of successful and happy, beautiful life is the knowledge and the application of a few simple root principles. If a man is to erect a building that is to resist the fiercest storms, he must build it on a simple mathematical principle or law such as a square or a circle. If he ignores this, his edifice will topple down even before it is finished. Likewise, if a man is to build up a successful, strong, and exemplary life, a life that will stoutly resist the fiercest of storms and adversity and temptation, it must be framed on a few simple, undeviating moral principles. One second. Moral principles. Four of these principles are justice, rectitude, sincerity, and kindness. These four ethical truths are to be making of a life, and with the four lines of a square are the building of a house. If a man ignores them and thinks to obtain success and happiness and peace by injustice, trickery, and selfishness, he is in the position of a builder who imagines he can build a strong and durable habitation while ignoring the relative arrangement of mathematical lines, and he will in the end obtain only disappointment and failure. He may for a time make money, which will delude him into believing that injustice and dishonest pay well, but in reality his life is so weak and unstable that he is ready at any moment to fail. And when the critical period comes, as come it must, his affairs, his reputation, and his riches crumble to the ruins, and he is buried into his own desolation. It is totally impossible for a man to achieve a truly successful and happy life who ignores the four moral principles enumerated, whilst the man who scrupulously observes them in all his dealings can no more fail of excess and blessedness than the earth can fail of the light and warmth of the sun, so long as it keeps to its lawful orbit, for he is working in harmony with the fundamental laws of the universe. He is building his life on a basis which cannot be altered or overthrown, and therefore that does not will be strong and durable, and all of his parts of his life will be so coherent and harmonious and firmly knit that it cannot possibly be brought to ruin. And all the universal forms which are built up by the great invisible and unerring power, it will be found that the observation of mathematical law is carried out within the unfailing exactitude down to the most minute detail. The microscope reveals that the fact that the infinitely small is to perfect as the infinitely great. A snowflake is as perfect as a star. Likewise, the erection of of a building by man, the strictness attention must be paid to every detail. A foundation must first be laid, although it is to be buried and hidden. It must receive the greatest care and made stronger than any other part of the building. Then stone upon stone, brick upon brick is carefully laid with the aid of a plumb line until the last building stands complete in its durability, strength, and beauty. Even, even so, it is with the life of a man who would have a life secure and blessed, a life free from the miseries and failures in which so many fall victims must carry the practice of the moral principles into every detail of his life, into every momentary duty and trivial transaction, and every little thing he need to be thorough and honest, and neglecting nothing, to neglect or misapply any little detail. But he, commercial man, agriculturist, professional man, and artisan, is the same as neglecting a stone or brick in the building. It would be a source of weakness and trouble. The majority of those who fail and come to grief do so through neglecting the apparently insignificant details. It is common error to suppose that little things can be passed by, and the greater things are more important. It should receive all attention, but a cursory glance at the universe, as well as a little serious reflection on life, will teach the lesson that nothing great can exist which is not made up of small details, in the composition of which every detail is perfect. He who adopts the four ethical principles as the law and base of his life, who raises the edifice of character upon them, who in his thoughts and words and actions does not wander from them, those every duty and every passing transaction is performed in strict accordance and their exactions. Such a man, laying down the hidden foundation of integrity of heart securely, strongly, cannot fail to raise up a structure which shall bring honor, and he is building a temple in which he can repose in peace and blessedness, even the strong and beautiful temple of his life. Cultivation. I usually stop at my 30-minute mark, but this book is almost done, so we're gonna run all the way through. You know what I'm saying? Cultivation of concentration. Concentration, or the bringing of the mind to a center and keeping it there, is vitally necessary to the accomplishment of any task. It is the father of thoroughness and the mother of excellence. As a faculty, it is not an end in itself, but as an aid to all faculties, all work. Not a purpose in itself, it is yet a power in which serves all purposes. Like STEM and mechanics, it is a dynamic force in the machinery. I said missionary. The machinery of the mind and the functions of life. The faculty is a common possession through. One second. Machinery of the mind and the functions of life. The faculty is a common possession through, in its perfection, it is rare. Just as will and reason are common possessions, through a perfectly poised will and comprehensive reason are rare possessions. And the mystery which some modern mystical writers have thrown around it is entirely superfluous. Every successful man in whatever direction and success may lie practices concentration though he may know not. He may know nothing about it as a subject of study. Every time one becomes absorbed in a book or task, or wrapped in devotion, or assiduous in duty, concentration in a greater or lesser degree is brought into play. Many books purporting to give instructions or concentration make its practice and acquisition and end in itself. than this. There is no sure nor swifter way to its destruction. The fixing of the eyes upon the tip of the nose, upon a doorknob, a picture, a mystical symbol, or the culture of saint, or the centering of the mind upon the navel, the pineal gland, some imaginary point in space. I have seen all those methods seriously and advised in works on this subject. With the subject of acquiring concentration is like trying to nourish the body by merely moving the jaw as the act of eating without taking food. Such methods prevent the end at which they aim. They lead towards disposition and not concentration, towards weakness and imbecility. Let me see if I can say this imbecility, rather than towards power and intelligence. I have met those who have squandered by these practices that measure concentration, that at first possessed and have become the prey of weak and wandering mind. Concentration is an aid of doing something. It is not the doing of something in itself. A latter has no value in and of itself, but only in so far it enables us to reach something which we could not otherwise reach. In like manner, concentration is that which enables the mind to accomplish with ease that which it would otherwise to be impossible to accomplish, but of itself is a dead thing and not a living accomplishment. Concentration is so interwoven that with the uses of life that it cannot be separated from duty. He who tries to acquire it apart from the task, his duty will not only fail, but diminish and not increase his mental control, executive capacity, and so render himself less and less fit to succeed in his undertakings. In the task of an hour, it is also the means for a cultivation of concentration, whether the task be acquiring divine knowledge or the sweeping of the floor, without resorting to methods in which no practical bearing on life for what is concentration, but bringing of a well-controlled mind to the doing of that which has to be done. He who does his work in an aimless, hurried, and thoughtless manner and results in the artificial concentration methods to his doorknob, to his picture, or his nasal extremity, in order to gain that which he imagines to be some kind of mystical power, but which is very ordinary and practical quality. Though he may drift towards insanity, and I knew one man who becomes insane by these practices, he will not increase in steadiness of mind. The great enemy of concentration, and therefore all of skill and power, is a wavering, wandering, undisciplined value in itself, and only in so far as it enables us to reach something which we could not otherwise reach. In like manner, concentration is that which enables the mind to accomplish the ease that which it would be otherwise impossible to accomplish, but itself it is a dead thing and not a living accomplishment. Concentration is interwoven with uses of life that it cannot be separated from duty, but who tries to acquire it apart from his task, his duty, and will not only fail, but diminish and not increase his mental control and executive capacity, and so render himself less and less fit to succeed in his undertakings. A scattered and undisciplined army would be useless. To make it effective in action and swift in victory, and it must be solidly concentrated and masterfully directed. Scattered and diffused through are weak and worthless thoughts. Marshaled, commanded, and directed upon a given point are invincible. Confusion, doubt, and difficulty give away before their masterly approach. Concentrated through enters largely into all success and informs all victory. There is no more secret about its acquirement than about any other acquisition, for it is governed by the underlying principle of all development, namely practice. To be able to do a thing, you must begin to do it. and to keep it on doing it until the thing is mastered. The principle prevails universally in all arts and sciences, trades, in all learning, conduct, religion. It may be able to paint. One must paint and know how to use this a tool skillfully. He must use the tool to become learned and must learn. To become wise, he must do wise things, and to successfully concentrate his mind, he must concentrate. He must concentrate. But doing it is not all. It must be done with energy and intelligence. The beginning of concentration then is to go to your daily task and put your mind on it, bringing in all your intelligence and your mental energy to focus upon that which has to be done. And every time the thought or found wandering aimlessly away, they should be brought properly back to the thing in hand. Thus, the center upon what are you to bring your mind to a point, not your pineal gland or in the space, but the work which you are doing every day and your object, and thus concentrating to be able to do your work with smooth, rapidly, consummate skill, for until you can thus do your work. You have not gained any degree or control over the mind. You have not acquired the power of concentration. The powerful focusing of one's thoughts and energy and will upon the doing of things is difficult at first, and as everything worth acquiring is difficult, but daily efforts strenuously made and patiently followed up will soon lead to such a measure of self-control as will enable to one to bring a strong and penetrating mind to bear upon any work undertaking a mind that will quickly comprehend all the details of the work and dispose of them with accuracy and dispatch. He will thus, as his concentrative capacity increases, enlarge his usefulness in the scheme of things and increase his value of world, thus inviting nobler opportunities and opening the door to higher duties. He will also experience the joy of a wider and fuller life and process of concentration. There are four following stages. 1 second. Almost there.
So close.
Attention, contemplation, abstraction, active, and repose. That at first the thoughts are arrested and the mind is fixed upon the object of concentration, which is the task in hand, that is attention. The mind is then roused into vigorous thought, and concerning the way of proceeding with the task, and it is contemplation. Protracting contemplation leads to a condition of mind in which the doors or the senses are all closed against the entrance of outside distractions. Key thoughts are being wrapped and solely and intensely entered upon the work in hand. This is abstraction. The mind, thus centered in profound cogitation, reaches a state in which the maximum of work is accomplished by the minimum of friction. This is activity and repose. Attention is the first stage of all successful work. They who lack and fail in everything, such are the lazy, the thoughtless, and the indifferent, and the incompetent. Yeah, I like that. When attention is followed by an awakening of the mind into the serious thought, then the second stage is reached. To ensure success in all ordinary worldly undertakings, it is not necessary to go beyond these two stages. They are reached in a greater or lesser degree by all that large army of skilled and competent workers which carries out the work of the world in its manifold departments, and only a comparatively small number reach the third stage of abstraction. For when the abstraction is reached, we have entered the sphere of genius. And the first two stages, the work and the mind, are separate, and the work is done more or less laboriously and with a degree of friction. But the third stage, a marriage of the work with the mind, takes place. There's a fusion of a union, and two become one. Then there is a superior efficiency with the less labor or friction, and perfection in the first two stages in the mind, objectively engaged, and is easily drawn from the center by internal sights and sounds. But when the mind has obtained perfection and abstraction, and the subjective method of working is accomplished, as distinguished from the objective, the thinker is then oblivious to the outside world, but is vividly alive in his mental operation, if spoken to. He will not hear if he is plied with more vigorous appeals. He will bring back his mind to the outside things as one coming out of a dream. Indeed, the abstraction is a kind waking dream, but its similarity to a dream ends with the subjective state. It does not obtain in the mental operations of that state, in which instead of confusion and dreaming, there is a perfect order, penetrating insight, and a wide range of compensation. Whoever attains the perfection of abstraction will manifest genius into particular work upon which is centered. Inventors, artists, poets, scientists, philosophers, and all of men of genius are men of abstraction. They accomplish subjectively and with ease that with the objective workers. Men have not yet obtained beyond the second stage, and concentration cannot accomplish with the most strenuous labor. With the fourth stage, that is, of activity of repose, is attained and concentrated, and its perfection is required. I am unable to find a single word which fully expresses this dual condition of intense activity combined with steadiness or rest, and have therefore employed the term actively and repose. The term appears contradictory, but the simple illustration of spinning top will serve to explain the paradox. When the top spins at the maximum velocity, the friction is reduced to the minimum of the top assumes that condition of perfect repose, which is a sight so beautiful to the eye and so captivating to the mind that the schoolboy who then says his top is asleep. The top is apparently motionless, but is the rest not in inertia, but to intense and perfect balanced activity. So the mind that has acquired perfect concentration is when engaged in the intense activity of thought, which results in productive work of the highest kind of a state, and quite poised and calm and repose. Externally, there is no apparent activity and no disturbance in the face of a man who has acquired this power will assume a more and less radiant calmness, and the face will be more sublimely calm when the mind is most intensely engaged, in fact, in active thought. Every stage of concentration has its particular power. Thus, the first stage, when perfected, leads to usefulness. The second leads to skill, ability, talent, and the third leads to originality and genius. But the fourth leads to mastery and power, and makes the leaders and the teachers of men. The development of concentration also is in all objects of growth. The following stages embody the preceding ones into their entirety. Thus, in contemplation, attention is contained in abstract. Both attention and contemplation are embodied, and he who has reached the last stage brings into play in the act of contemplation all four stages. He who has perfected himself in concentration is able to at any moment to bring his thoughts to a point upon any matter, and to search into it with strong light of an active comprehension. He can both take a little up and lay it down, and equally deliberate and in equal deliberation. He has learned how to use his thinking faculties to fix purposes and guide them toward definite ends. He is an intelligent doer of things and not a weak wanderer of chaotic thought. Decisions, energy, alertness, as well as deliberation, judgment, and gravity accompany the habit of concentration, and that vigorous mental training in which its cultivation and involved leads to the thought of every increasing looseness and success and worldly occupations towards and that higher form of concentration called meditation, in which the mind becomes divinely illumined and acquires the heavenly knowledge. Practice of meditation. When aspiration is unified to concentration, the result is meditation. And when a man intensely desires to reach and realize a higher, pure, and more radiant life than merely worldly pleasure of loving life, he engages in aspiration. And when he earnestly concentrates his thoughts upon the finding of life and he practices meditation, without intense aspiration, there can be no meditation. Lethargy, lethargy and indifference are fatal to his practice. The more intense of a nature of man, the more readily will he find meditation, and the more successfully will he practice it. A fiery nature will most rapidly scale the heights of truth in meditation, and which is when his aspirations have become sufficiently awakened. Concentration is necessary to worldly success. Meditation is necessary to spiritual success. Worldly skill and knowledge are acquired by concentration. Spiritual skill and knowledge are required by meditation. Concentration, a man can scale the highest heights of genius, but he cannot scale the heavenly heights of truth. To accomplish this, he must meditate. By concentration, a man acquires the wonderful comprehension, and vast power of Caesar. By meditation, he may reach the divine wisdom and perfect peace of a Buddha. The perfection of concentration is power. The perfection of meditation is wisdom. By concentration, men acquire skill in the doing of the things of life, and science, art, and trade, and etc. But by meditation, they acquire skill in life itself, and right living, enlightenment, wisdom, etc. Saints, sages, saviors, wise men, and divine teachers are the finished products of holy meditation. The four stages of concentration are brought into play in meditation. The difference between the two powers of being in one direction and not of nature. Meditation is therefore spiritual concentration. The beginning of the mind is to a focus and its search for divine knowledge, the divine life, the intense dwelling, and the thought of it on truth. Thus a man aspires to know and realize above all things else the truth. He then gives attention to conduct, to life, and to self-purification. Giving attention to these things, he passes into serious contemplation of the facts, problems, and mysteries of life. Thus, contemplating the truth, he comes to love truth so fully and intensely as to become wholly absorbed in it. The mind is drawn away from its wanderings and a multitude of desires and solving one by one the problems of life, realizing that profound union of truth in which is the state of abstraction. And thus observing the truth, there is the balance of poise and character, the divine action and repose, which is the abiding calm and peace of an emancipated and enlightened mind. Meditation is more difficult to practice than concentration because it involves a much more severe self-discipline in which obtains concentration. Good morning, how you doing? A man can practice concentration without purifying his heart and life, whereas the process of purification is inseparable from meditation. The object of meditation is divine enlightenment, the attainment of truth, and is therefore interwoven with practices of purity and righteousness. Thus, while at first the time spent in actual meditation is short, perhaps only half an hour in the early morning, the knowledge should gain in that half an hour of vivid aspiration and concentration. Concentration, thought is embodied in practices during the whole day, and meditation therefore the entire life of a man is involved and he advances in his practices and becomes more and more fitted to perform the duties of life and circumstances in which he may be placed. For he becomes stronger, holier, calmer, and wiser. The principle of meditation is twofold, namely, purification is the heart by repetitive thought of pure things. Attainment of divine knowledge by embodying such impurity in practical life. Man's thought, being, and his life and character are determined by the thoughts in which he habitually dwells. A practice, association, and habit. Thoughts tend to repeat themselves with greater and greater ease and frequency, and so fix the character and give him direction by producing that automatic action in which in which is called habit. By daily dwelling upon pure thoughts, the man of meditation informs of the habit of pure enlightened thinking, and which leads to pure and enlightened actions of well-performed duties by ceaseless repetition of pure thoughts. He is at last becomes one of those thoughts and is purified, being manifesting his attainment and pure action in a serene and wise life. The majority of men live in a series of conflicting desires, passions, emotions, and speculations, and restlessness, uncertainty, and sorrow. But when a man begins to train his mind and meditation, he gradually gains control over the inward conflict of being in his thoughts to a focus upon a certain principle. In this way, the old habits are impure and erroneous thought and action are broken up, and the new habits of pure enlightenment thought and action are formed. The man becomes more and more reconciled to truth, and there is increasingly harmony and insight, growing perfection and peace. A powerful and lofty aspirations towards truth is always accompanied with a keen scene of sorrow and brevity and mystery of life. And until this condition of mind is reached, and meditation is impossible, merely musing and whiling away in time and all the dreaming habits to which the word meditation is frequently applied in a very far removed from meditation in a roughly spiritual sense in which we attract to that condition. It is easy to mistake reverie for meditation. This is a fatal error and must be avoided by one striving to meditate. This too must be confounded. Reverie is a loose dreaming in which a man fails. Sounds familiar. Meditation is a strong and purposeful thinking in which a man arises. Reverie is easy and pleasurable. Meditation is first difficult and irksome. Reverie thrives in idleness and luxury. Meditation arises from strenuousness and discipline. Reverie is first all learned and then sensuous and the sensual. Meditation is the first forbidding, then profitable, and then peaceful. Reverie is dangerous and it undermines self-control. Meditation is protective. It establishes self-control. There are certain signs by which one can know whether he is engaging to reverie or meditation. The indications of reverie are a desire to avoid excitation, a desire to experience the pleasures of dreaming, and increasing distaste for worldly duties, a desire to shirk worldly responsibilities, a fear of consequences, a wish to get money with as little effort as possible, a lack of self-control. The indications of meditations are increase of both physical and mental energy, a strenuous striving after wisdom, a decrease of irksomeness, performance of duty, a fixed determination to faithfully fulfill all worldly responsibilities, freedom from fear, indifference to riches, possession of self-control. There are certain times, places, and conditions in and under which it is impossible to meditate. Others wherein it is difficult to meditate, and others wherein meditation is rendered more accessible, and these, and which should be known and carefully observed, are as follows: time, places, conditions in which meditation is impossible. At or immediately after meals, in place of pleasures, in crowded spaces, while walking rapidly, while laying in bed in the morning, while smoking, while lying on a couch or bed for physical and mental relaxation. Times and places, conditions in which meditation is difficult. At night, in a luxury furnished room, or sitting on a soft gilded seat, while wearing gay clothing. When in company, when the body is weary, if the body is getting too much food, time and places and conditions in which is best to meditate. Very early in the morning, immediately before meals, a solitude, and the open air of a plainfully furnished room, while sitting on a hard seat, when the body is strong and vigorous, and the body is modestly and plain clothes. It will be seen by foregoing instructions with ease and luxury and indulgence, which indulge in revelry, render meditation difficult, and when strongly pronounced, make it impossible. Strenuousness, discipline, and self-denial, which dispel revelry, make meditation comparatively easy. The body too should be neither overfed or starved, or neither in rags nor flauntingly clothed. It should not be tired, but should be at its highest point of energy and strength, as the holding of the mind to concentrated training, subtle and lawfully, who requires a high degree of both physical and mental energy. Aspiration can often best be aroused in the mind, renewed in meditation by the mental repetition of a lawfully precept, a beautiful sentence, or a verse of poetry. Instead, the mind that is ready for meditation will instinctively adapt this practice. Mere mechanical repetition is worthless and even a hindrance. The words repeated must be so applicable to one's own condition that they dwell upon lovingly and with a concentrated devotion. And this way, aspiration and concentration harmoniously combine to produce without undue strain in the state of meditation. All the conditions above stated, or the most importance of the early stages of meditation, should be carefully noted and duly observed by all who who are striving to acquire the practice, and those who faithfully follow the instructions, who strive to preserve, will not fail to gather in due season the harvest, purity, wisdom, bliss, and peace, will surely eat of the sweet fruits of holy meditation. Good morning. Get back to it, y'all. Check something. Good. All right. We almost at the end. The power of purpose. Disposition is weakness. Concentration is power. Destruction is a scattering. Preservation, a unifying process. Things are useful and thoughts are powerful in the measure that their parts are strongly and intelligently concentrated. Purpose is highly concentrated thought. Purpose is a highly concentrated thought. All the mental energies and directed to the attainment of an objective and obstacles in which intervene between the thinker and the object are one after another, broken down and overcome. Purpose is the keystone into the temple of achievement, and it binds and holds together in a complete whole that would otherwise lie scattered and useless. Empty whims, ephemeral fantasies, vague desires, and half-hearted resolutions have no place in purpose. In the sustained determination to accomplish, there is a invisible power which swallows up in inferior considerations and marches direct to victory. All successful men are men of purpose. They hold fast to an ideal object, ideal project, a plan, and will not let it go. They cherish it, brood upon it, tend and develop it. And when assailed by difficulties, they refuse to be begolded and to surrender. And indeed, the intensity of the purpose increases the growing magnitude of the obstacles encountered. The men who have molded the destinies of humanity have been men mighty of purpose, like the Roman. Laying his road, they are followed along well-defined paths and have refused to swerve aside when tortured when tortured and death confronted them. The great leaders of the race are the mental road makers, and the mankind follows into the intellectual and spiritual paths in which they have carved out and beat. Great is the power of purpose. To know how great, let a man study in the lives of those whose influence has shaped the ends of nations and directed the destinies of the world. In an Alexander, a Caesar, a Napoleon, we see the power of purpose when it is directed in worldly and personal channels, in a Confucius, a Buddha, and a Christ. We perceive as a vaster power, and when its course is along heavenly and impersonal paths. Purpose goes with intelligence. There are lesser and greater purposes according to the degrees of intelligence. A great mind will always be a greater purpose. A weak intelligence will always be without purpose. A drifting mind argues a measure of undevelopment. What can resist an unshakable purpose? What can stand against it and turn it aside? Inert matter yields to a living force, and circumstances succumbs to the power of purpose. Truly, the man of unlawful purpose will, in achieving his ends, destroy himself. But the man of God and lawful purpose cannot fail. It only needs that he daily renew the fire and energy of his fixed resolve to consummate his object. The weak man who grieves because he is understood, he will greatly achieve. He will not greatly achieve. The valiant man who steps aside from his resolve in order to please others and gain their approbation will not highly achieve. Good morning. The double-minded man who thinks to compromise his purpose will fail. The man of fixed purpose, who, whether misunderstandings and foul accusations or flatteries or fair promises rain upon him, does not yield a fraction of his resolve. The man of excellence and achievement and success and greatness and power hindrances stimulate the man of purpose. Difficulties never him to renewed exhortation. Mistakes, losses, pains do not subdue him, and failures are steps in the ladder of success, for he is ever conscious and certainty of final achievement. All things at last yield to the silent, irresistible, all-conquering energy of purpose. Out of the night that covers me, like as the pit from the pole to pole, I think where the gods may be from unconquerable soul. Good morning, how you doing?
Good, you reading anything good?
Yeah.
What are you reading?
What am I reading?
Yeah.
This. In fair clutch of circumstances I may have not, nor cried aloud under the bludgeoning of sin of chance. Good morning, how you doing? No problem. Unbludgeoning of chance. My head is bloody but unbowed. It matters how straight the gate, how charged with punishment, the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Hey, y'all, we've been rocking for a whole hour. Alright, let's see. I think this is the last one. I think this is the last chapter. The joy of accomplishment. Joy is always the accomplishment of a task successfully and accomplished. An undertaking completed or a piece of work done always brings rest and satisfaction. When a man has done his duty, he is lighthearted and happy, says Emerson. Well, that's without a doubt. That's true. And no matter how insufficient the task may appear, the doing of it faithfully and with whole-souled energy always results in cheerfulness and peace of mind. Of all miserable men, the shirking of the most miserable, thinking to find ease and happiness in avoiding difficult duties and necessary tasks which require the expenditure of labor and exertion. His mind is always uneasy and disturbed, and he becomes burdened with an inward sense of shame and forfeits manliness and self-respect. He who will not work accordingly to his faculty, let him perish according to his necessity, says Carlyle. And it is a moral law that the man who avoids duty, does not work to the full extent of his capacity, does not actually perish first in his character, but last in his body and circumstances. Life and actions are synonymous, and immediately a man tries to escape exertion, either physically or mentally, he has commenced to decay. On the other hand, the energetic increase in life by the full exercises of their powers, by overcoming difficulties and bringing to completion tasks which call for the strenuous use of mind and muscle. How happy is a child when a school lesson long labored over is mastered at last. The athlete who has trained his body through long months of years of discipline and strain is richly blessed into his increased health and strength, and is met with rejoicing of his friends, and when he carries home the prize from the field of contest, after many years of ungrudgingly toil, and the heart of a scholar is gladdened with the advantages of powers in which learning bestows. The businessman grappling incessantly with difficulties and drawbacks is amply repaid in the happy assurance of well-earned success. And the horticulturalist, vigorously contended with the stubborn soil, sits down at last to eat of the fruits of his labor. Every successful accomplishment, even in the worldly things, is repaid when its own measure of joy in the spiritual things. The joy which supervenes upon the perfection of purpose is sure, deep, and abiding. Great is the heartfelt joy, albeit and infallible. When after innumerable and apparently unsuccessful attempts, some gain fault of character is at last cast out to trouble and erstwhile victim in the world no more. The striver after virtue, he who is engaged in the holy task of building up a noble character, tastes every step of conquest over self, a joy in which does not again leave him, and which becomes an integral part of his spiritual nature. All life is a struggle, both without and within. There are conditions against which man must contend. That's a bar. His very existence is a series of efforts and accomplishments, and his right to remain among men as a useful unit of humanity depends upon the measure of his capacity for wrestling successfully with the elements of nature without or with the enemies of virtue and truth within. It is demanded of a man that he shall continue to strive, and after better things or greater perfection, and after higher and higher, still higher achievements, in accordance with the measure of obedience to this demand, does the angel of joy wait upon the footstep and minister upon unto himself. For he who is anxious to learn, eager to know, or who puts forth efforts to accomplish, finds the joy in which eternally sings to the heart of the universe. First in little things, then in greater still. Must man strive until at last he is prepared to make the supreme effort and strive for accomplishment of truth, succeeding in which he will realize the external joy, the practice of life and effort. The alchemy of effort is accomplishment. The reward of accomplishment is joy. Blessed the man who strives against his own selfishness, he will taste in his fullness of joy and accomplishment. Alright. This is the end of the book, ladies and gentlemen. This is the front. This is the back. I copped this book off Amazon. If anybody want to read it, or you know what I'm saying, or if you don't have time to look for my channel, you know what I'm saying, Edhead 704, and get the audio, you know, in due time. This is what I'll be doing, but in due time, the quality will get better, the sound will get erased, the videos will get better, the vision will get better, everything else will be better. Just bear with me. Again, this was a great read. Again, I don't believe in manifestation. I believe in prayer, prayer and meditation. It works. Um, it's a word in here that everybody. It's a word in here that I'm not gonna tell you about it. But it's a word in here that y'all be putting out as manifestation, and it's not. One second. Good morning. How you doing? I'm doing all right. All right. It's a word in here. It's a word in here that y'all be putting in this manifestation, and it's really not. And it's actually this word. Let me see if I can find it for you. Good morning. How you doing? I'm doing all right. Starts with a heart. I gotta find it for y'all. Reverend. This word right here. Get close. Y'all can see it. Spelled Reverie. Y'all clearly like confused. Y'all use this word as manifestation. Look up that word, and then you look for manifestation. Y'all really been using it wrong. That's why I don't believe in manifestation. And if you don't believe me, look at your life. Um, with that being said, this is the book. This is As a Man Thinketh. Includes The Mastery of Destiny by James Allen. Hey, go cop it if you like reading stuff like this.